There's no debate who's the big mana deck in Modern, but today we're giving Tron a facelift to the point it will be unrecognizable. Let me introduce you to Dice Factory Tron, a combo-rific blend of traditional Tron and Dice Factory rolled into one. Here's how it works. This deck abuses Surge Node and Coretapper to ramp your mana by placing charge counters on a newly cast Everflowing Chalice or Astral Cornucopia. But that's not all. These artifacts in combination with Paradox Engine means you get to untap and use them multiple times every turn to generate infinite mana and churn through your deck with Mystic Forge and the One Ring. And as for your closer, Karn the Great Creator can -2 to grab a Walking Ballista out of your sideboard and ping your opponent dead. So if you like to generate tons of mana and go bananas, today's video is just for you. Let me show you in our first match against the best deck in the format. Not a bad way to get started, just drawing opening Tron in your first 7-card hand. We'll keep this. Opponent with the Verdant Catacombs, they fetch Blood Crypt and a Thoughtseize. Mystic Forge hits the bin. We drew a second tower. We'll start on the tower and we'll pass the turn. My opponent untaps. Bloodstained Mire fetches another Blood Crypt into a Voidwalker. We'll untap, we drew into an island, play out a power plant. I don't see too much of a reason to play out the Coretappers right now, so we're just going to pass the turn. Opponent untaps, and they grief us, which is unfortunate, so they're going to take our Karn here. They exile another Voidwalker. They sacrifice the Voidwalker and cast the Karn, a card which I don't think we can really win through. Bloodstained Mire for a basic into a Pyromancer. I think this game would have gone a little bit differently if we were on the play. Karn ticks up, back to us. Drew into a Mystic Forge. Can't activate it, but we can use it, so we'll lead on that. Mystic Forge. Another Karn on top. That one we can use. We'll just play out our Coretapper. I'll pass the turn back. They untap. Karn plus on my Mystic Forge, and they're going to Fury it down, discarding a Ragavan. Very rude. Feign Death on the Fury. It's going to come back. Coretapper goes. Attack for 3. We're down to 17. Alright, we knew about the Karn. We'll start there. Play out a Karn of our own. And I think we start with an Ensnaring Bridge here. Play that out. Play out our Coretapper. Pass the turn. They have a land, which means that our Karn is safe, and we should be able to start taking over from here. They attack for 1 into Karn. We'll make that trade. Drew into an Expedition map. We're going to minus our Karn to start, yes, and we're going to get Cityscape Leveler. Cast that out. We'll get rid of their Karn. Basic Island and an Expedition map. Pass turn back. End turn we're going to map. Let's get ourselves an Inventor's Fair. Untap. Drew another Karn. Pretty good. Start by plussing Karn, getting rid of their Power Stone. Let's play out the Inventor's Fair. Cast another Karn, keep the new one, minus the new one, get ourselves a ring, cast out the ring, trigger, we'll pass the turn. Another land from our opponent, draw a card with the ring end of turn, into a Serum Powder, untap, lose 1, gain 1, stay at the same life, draw another ring, to start off this turn, minusing Karn again. This time I think we're going to get a Paradox Engine. Play out the engine, we'll draw 2 cards. We're going to play a Cornucopia for 2, Paradox Engine's going to untap everything, draw 3 cards. And now it's go time. Cornucopia and Surge Node with Paradox Engine in play means we're off to the races. We find 2 more Surge Nodes along with 2 Serum Powders, and things get silly. Tapping and untapping a half a dozen times results in 29 mana by the time we decide to put our opponent out of their misery. Another Karn, untap everything, keep the new one, add a ton of mana, minus Karn, get ourselves a Ballista, cast a Ballista for 14, untap everything, we'll get them dead, Ballista them down from 11. And after that, we're on to game 2, which unfortunately was one of those uneventful games against Scam where they double grief you turn 1 and then you just get run over. I'm not going to bother recapping this game because if you've played the matchup, you've seen it a million times before. Let's move on to a much more interactive and exciting game 3. Opponent's on a 6-card hand. We'll start Saga, Chalice on 0, and a map. Pass the turn with a basic Swamp and a Thoughtseize. Imagine they take the Coretapper here, and they do. Untap, draw into a Karn. Saga goes up to 1. Don't really need to crack the map for anything just yet. Play out our second Saga, and we'll play out the other map. Back to our opponent. Blood Crypt into a Voidwalker. Untap. Drew into a Coretapper. Pretty good. So we'll use our Saga. I think we're going to get ourselves a Surge Node here. Play out our Inventor's Fair. Put a counter on the Chalice. I think we play out our Coretapper here. Pass the turn back. Polluted Delta from my opponent into a Magus of the Moon. That's fine. Saga goes away. Hit for 3. We'll untap. Drew another map. Maps don't really do anything at this point. Charge counter on the Chalice, Surge Node the Chalice, crack the map, get our basic island. Doesn't really matter at this point. And we'll crack the other map, get ourselves a tower, pass turn back. Bloodstained Mire, Bowmasters, target the Coretapper, we're going to respond. Put 2 counters on the Chalice. Opponent with attack for 3, down to 14. Alright, we drew another Coretapper. Play out the tower, Surge Node onto the Chalice, cast out another Coretapper, sacrifice it, more counters on the Chalice, 8 mana map, Karn, minus Karn, yes, and we're going to get our bridge. We'll cast the bridge out, pass the turn back. Nothing from our opponent, we'll untap. Okay, that's a good one. Surge Node on the Chalice, cast a Paradox Engine, minus Karn, get ourselves a 1 ring, pass the ring, untap everything. Ring triggers, let's draw a card. And while the opponent's Bowmaster can ping away our Karn, we have protection from everything, so we can just keep drawing away without much concern. I find myself another Karn, and with 27 mana in pool, I think it's time to get the Ballista and send this scammer packing. Let's get back to it. Opening 7, I actually like this. I think we're going to keep. And on the play, I'm actually going to start with a Saga here, and we'll play a map out as well. My opponent leads with a tapped Overgrown Tomb, will untap. Drew into a Manifold Key, actually pretty good. Should be a fairly quick start for us. Play out our Coretapper, play out our Cornucopia, and we'll pass the turn back. Blooming Marsh from the other side of the table. Looking like Yawgmoth as it stands. We'll untap. Drew into a land, really good. We'll add a mana with the Urza Saga, and we're going to get a Surge Node here. We're going to put a charge counter on the Cornucopia, another charge counter. Play out our Power Plant, Manifold Key, and my opponent Besages down my Cornucopia. We'll use Besage's ability here. I think we'll get Karn into play. Then we'll minus Karn. I think we might just get a ring. We'll pass the turn. My opponent untaps. Wall of Roots, Verdant Catacombs, fetch, Overgrown Tomb Shock, 2 mana, Bowmaster. We'll sacrifice the Coretapper, put 2 more counters on the Surge Nodes. Untap. Drew into a second ring. We're going to start with our map here, get our tower. Play out the tower. I'm actually going to minus Karn this turn and get a Stonebrain, and we're going to Stonebrain Yawgmoth. Alright, my opponent had 2 Court of Callings in hand and a Grist. Yawgmoth is down. We'll pass the turn back. Verdant Catacombs, fetch, Basic Forest, Grist the Hunger Tide, plus Grist, crack at Karn. Karn's down. Back to us. Drew into a map. So I think we're going to start with a ring and hope to draw into a land from here. Trigger the ring. We'll draw 1. Opponent's Court of Calling for 2 in response to this ring. Get themselves a second Bowmaster. They opt to hit Wall of Roots. We'll draw, get a Mystic Forge. And they're going to target their Orc army here. We'll play out the map, crack the map, get another tower here, play out the tower into a Mystic Forge. I don't hate the Inventor's Fair on the top, so we'll leave that there, and we'll just pass the turn back. Uptick with Grist, land tapped, another Wall of Roots, so we have perfect information at this point. Opponent with a Court of Calling for 4. I guess they have Shieldred in the list. Okay, and there it is. Take 1 off our ring, draw a card for turn. Cornucopia is on top, really good. We're going to play out our Inventor's Fair, play out the Cornucopia. I'm going to Surge Node the Cornucopia now. 5 mana, we'll play out a Paradox Engine. I'm going to cast this Chalice for 3. I don't know if there's a more appropriately named card than Paradox Engine, as it really is the engine to this deck. Every time it hits the board, our opponents seem to lose on the same turn. Weird. Alright, add a gajillion mana, cast out our Karn, Paradox Engine, everything untaps, minus Karn, yes, Walking Ballista, and our opponent scoops. Alright. With only about 100 and something mana in the pool. This is a very interesting opening 7. I don't think we can keep this. We'll mulligan. A very interesting 5-card hand, or 6-card hand, but we can't keep this either. I like our 5 much better. We'll keep this. Definitely getting rid of 1 Chalice. Probably the Paradox Engine. Opponent of the 6-card hand leads with a Blooming Marsh. Alright, we have turn 3 Tron. Play out the map. Pass the turn. Twilight Mire. Tap for 2. Strangleroot Guys, sure. Attack for 1. Drew a second Mystic Forge. We'll just play out our Power Plant and pass the turn. Opponent taps. Attack for 2. No play, and we're going to map end of turn. Get ourselves a tower. This feels like a Besage's coming. Untap. Draw. Draw into a Stonebrain. Okay. Play out our tower and play out a Chalice for 2. Cast out Stonebrain. Looks like it's going to resolve. And they play out a Bowmasters in response. Alright, and we're going to name Yawgmoth. Get rid of the combo kill. 4 Yawgmoths down. They do have a Force of Vigor in hand. Good to know about. And we're just going to pass the turn back from here. Verdant Catacombs, fetch, Overgrown Tomb, Bowmasters, attack for 5, going down to 9 life. Untap. Drew a Cornucopia, which is actually really good. We're going to start on a Mystic Forge. Map on top, we'll play that out. Crack the map, we get another tower. Play out the tower, play out a Manifold Key. Opponent discards the Wall of Roots, cast the Force of Vigor. We'll let this happen. I'm going to cast Cornucopia for 1. Cast a Surge Node, and we're going to put a second counter on the Cornucopia, and we'll pass the turn. Take 6, go down to 3. There's Grist. Plus Grist, Insect into play. Untap. Alright, we knew about the map, which is a reshuffle. Put a counter on the Cornucopia. Let's start with the Mystic Forge. Okay, now we can really get things going. 3 mana, untap the Cornucopia. 5 mana, Paradox Engine off the top. With the engine online, we have all of the mana we could ever want between Cornucopia, Chalice, and Key. And Mystic Forge adds fuel to the fire, almost guaranteeing that we'll be able to continue to chain spells together until we find Karn and lock up the win. Our next match wound up being a very unusual sequence of games against a variation of a very unusual deck. My opponent was playing Mono White Suppression Field, which I featured in one of my past videos. This match was unusual because my deck doesn't really care about Suppression Field, and I didn't even need to combo over the course of the 2 games we played. In both games, I actually just attacked with really big constructs, and it was enough to get the job done. But it wasn't all gravy throughout our league, as we suffered 2 match losses, 1 to Scam and 1 to Jund. I want to show you very specific moments from each of these matches so you can get an idea of how they went. End of turn, opponent casts a Bowmasters. It's going to trigger. Target the Coretapper, will sacrifice it, put 2 more counters on the Chalice. Now we need to dodge our opponent hitting a Karn off their Ragavan. Verdant Catacombs, or take a hit for 11. No Karn, and they hit a Karn. Brutal. And it didn't stop there, as our Jund opponent felt that 1 crushing defeat wasn't enough, so they decided to do us dirty with this play. Attack for 2. We're down to 15 and a 1 ring. Okay, so we should be able to go off here, as long as they don't draw Force of Vigor. 4 cards in hand. We untap, and there it is. Unfortunate. Don't think there's anything we can do here. So we fell on the wrong side of variance in our 2 losses and closed the league with a 3-2 record, but at least we got to go bananas a few times. My friends, I am checking out, but please don't forget to subscribe. I will see you all again after my move next week, but until then, you know the deal. Be well.